This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I am your host, Karen Beach, and this is the Journey Step by Step Christian Podcast. About 8 years ago, I always start my show by saying, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. About 8 years ago, I was doing anything but rejoicing. I was in the throes of a very deep and serious depression. And the Monday before Thanksgiving, it'll be 8 years ago this year, I tried to take my own life. I had been struggling with depression. I had reached out for help, and I was told that I'm a strong woman, that I'll get through it, that my pain wasn't any better or worse than anyone else's. And by well-meaning Christians, that all I really needed to do was pray. And it's easy to say that kind of stuff when you don't suffer from depression, because prayer was almost impossible for me. Getting out of bed was difficult for me. There have been times in my life when, because I'm a big list maker, I will put on my list, get up and get dressed, because it's that serious. And I think as Christians, as people that should be reaching out to people, should be offering our love and support to people, it's important that we recognize mental illness, trauma, and that we begin to learn how to address those things. Telling people that they need to pray, to me, is not sufficient. I'm sorry. I'm a survivor of suicide. And I'm here today talking to you because God had another plan for me. And part of that plan, I believe, is to tell people, Christian people and specifically, what we need to do to help our brothers and sisters who are in crisis. And with that, I want to introduce Kyerra Johnson. She is a member of the We Speak Foundation, and she too is committed to helping people who are struggling with mental illness and teaching other people how to reach them. So, Kyerra, welcome to the journey.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here and to be able to talk with you. I'm excited.
I am too. Tell me a little bit about your organization, the We Speak Foundation.
So ultimately what I try to tell people, just to kind of give them a visual perception of what our organization is about, we want to be like the Walmart of resources. So when you come to We Speak Foundation, we want you to be able to find out any resource that you need. And it's not something that you pay for, but everything is run by donations. And 50% of our donations go back into communities of need. We also do things like free marketing and advertising, just in order to receive donations, but also helping to grow communities of need as well. Specifically this year, we're working on suicide prevention as we can understand that there's been a crisis and under this understanding of values of what mental health really means in our society today.
You know, when we talked before we came on the air, you said something that spoke to me, that for a long time, mental health has been swept under the rug. And I would agree with that. So what did you mean when you said swept under the rug?
As I've said, and I've mentioned in previous interviews, is that for generations, for hundreds of generations, especially in African American communications, and I'm speaking to what I know or what I'm familiar with, but for hundreds of years during the times of slavery, there were no options for many people, African Americans, to say, I don't want to deal with this day. You know, I don't want to deal with those problems. I don't want to, deal with watching, my father die in front of me or my mother die in front of me, or just living in chaos every single day. And what they were told were many times is that you have to be quiet, that you have to be strong, that you have to pray, that, you know, that there are other things besides actually dealing with the issues at hand. And for generations, we have been taught to just not cry, not be angry about it, but get over it and be strong about it. And it's caused a lot of harm.
It really has. And I think, too, when you start thinking about what people go through and what we've been through historically as a people, you end up hearing what a lot of people say nowadays, which is mental health is a white people thing. And a lot of minorities, I've heard Hispanics say that, other minorities say that, but it's not. It's a human thing. And getting to the point where we all understand it, or even white people say it. I've heard white people say it's a rich white people thing, you know, but going to get help and admitting you need help. I've been told in the past that, oh, you're a strong woman, you don't need to do that. Well, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is seek help.
Yes. I think that's highly underestimated, given the things that we have to go through daily. I think about just being a mom alone can put you in a state of depression, because each day you're wanting to accomplish specific goals, and when you don't reach those goals every day, it becomes depressing, you know, and that's just being a mom. So there's not to mention just everyday people just dealing with life and how things are affecting them, and just believing that, well, it's not real. It's for people that can afford it.
Yeah, but what I've learned, I'm sorry, I'm suffering from allergies that I just started. So if I sound stuffed up, that's why. But so many people, when you have an issue, don't really know how to process it. And you try to do it on your own. You know what? Let me start over, because I just lost my train of thought there. What was the last thing you said? I'm sorry. I'm trying not to.
We were talking about people that being like a rich white person type of thing, that only white people can afford it. Minorities thinking that's not something that they believe in ultimately.
Right. You know, it's not just a rich white people thing. And lately, I know with organizations like yours and other organizations have started advocating for affordable mental health care. And that is critical. I know I was going through a bad season of unemployment earlier this year, and a friend of mine said, maybe you need a support group. And I found one, but it's funny how God works. I didn't realize, I just picked the one that was closest to me. I didn't realize it was in a church.
Wow.
And this church has a whole mental health calling. So I've been able to, without insurance, go over there and speak to a therapist in addition to the support group for free. And so being able to uncover those types of services in your community can make a huge difference.
I agree 100%. And I think that's something that I grew up understanding after a while, is that the community that I grew up in did not comprise of the institutions or the resources that we needed in order to become mentally healthy. When we think about, I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois. East St. Louis, Illinois has one of the highest crime rates in the United States. And it's like, when you think about those statistics, you could say, well, wow, there's a really high crime rate. But the other side of that is what's happening that's causing such a really high crime rate. And when we don't have the resources in our community, it fails us. When we don't continuously mention it in our school, or we talk about how, the effects of mental health can take effect in our lives, when we lack that conversation, we develop crime, we develop, depressive activities like, alcoholism, using sex as, as a way of a high, and using drugs. All sorts of things are caused due to not understanding that your mental health could be at stake due to the environment that you're in and the lack of resources.
And then you think, too, what I think about when I think of the lack of mental health resources, I also think about how our family suffer. How much more, how better you would be for your kids if you got the mental health that you need.
Oh my goodness, yes.
How would your life be if you didn't pass on these mental health issues that we think of as commonplace, but really are issues that can be handled and dealt with?
When I think about with my father, when he committed the act of killing my mother and then committing the act of killing himself afterwards, when you think about that, you should say that they're going to need some help. And initially it was ordered and it was mandated by the courts for us, but not having, I can say the one thing that I grew up and I lacked was somebody to talk to about the things that I was dealing with. And the feeling of being vulnerable, or the feeling of, just being able to be open to other people, was a scary thought or idea. A feeling of being misused or tricked or, devalued in emotions. And so, sorry, I lost my thought there.
When you shared your story, what occurred to me is that in addition to mental health, we also need to deal with trauma. Because a lot of people might not have depression, they might not have bipolar disorder or schizoaffective disorder, but they've been through a trauma. And if that trauma isn't dealt with, it can be a negative. It can have all sorts of devastating effects on your life, just like a mental illness would.
Right. And, I think that's something that's across the board. When we're talking about, children that go through, that have trauma that hasn't been dealt with, it becomes, like I said, criminal acts are nothing but, trauma-related variables or mental health issues that never got treated. Those are all products of what will happen when criminal acts are committed. When I think about people who are, using guns and things like that to shoot up stores or large areas, it's a lot of the times they say, well, it's a mental health thing. A lot of times it is a mental health thing, mental health that never got treated, that no one ever, had the resources to, or gave the resources to, or talked to children about. A lot of them are young children. A lot of them have mixed views about society. And because of that, we get the society that we live in today, where we see mass shootings and public shootings. It's different.
And it's very different. And when you look at that, you look at untreated trauma, it doesn't just manifest in violence, it also manifests in substance abuse.
Yes.
Because you have people that are suffering from a lot of pain, and if they're not dealing with it correctly, they might be trying to self-medicate with alcohol, with drugs. And, we need to look at that too as a reason for people acting out or turning to drugs. It's a lot of mental health that's underlying all of these things.
I think that when we look at the opioid addiction rate, when we look at a lot of these substance abuses that are being used right now, we can attribute a lot of it not only to, I like to call them happy prescribers that are diagnosing children at such young ages. But in addition to that, medications like that only suppress the issues that people are actually dealing with. It doesn't talk the issues out. It literally suppresses the emotions that those children are having. And as they get older, and a lot of them don't use those opioid drugs anymore, and it affects them in ways of mental health. And on the other side, those that continue use, it eventually affects their mental health. So it's just like either side of the spectrum. It's very hard on our country and in our neighborhoods, our communities, to understand the opioid addiction and how it's affecting us all as far as mental health is concerned.
So we have mental health that we need to deal with, but we also need to look at it from a faith-based perspective, because a lot of times as Christians, what we should be doing is being out in the community, offering our support, doing what needs to be done to help those that are less fortunate. What would be, in a perfect world, a Christian approach to mental health?
Oh my God, taking out social media. When we think about where mental health was before, I guess we see a rise in social media, we talked to each other a lot more. We did more activities with each other. Community activities were more important. Unifying in communities were more important. And when we see things like, the new bombshells and social media, it has transformed how churches now communicate, how the church can reach people. And I think that overall there has been a lot of churches that have gone completely on the network and have forgotten about the community. And it's important that we get back on our feet again, and we go door to door, and we sit down and we talk to people, because it's important. It's important now.
And I think, too, with social media, and we've lost a lot of compassion. We've lost a lot of kindness, and that should be at the crux of who we are as Christians.
I think that social media has hurt our character so much, because there's no more transparency. You don't have to be vulnerable on social media. People only see what you allow them to see, and that's not true at all. And it's affected our society in a way that has caused a lot of depression, because people do not meet those standards that are supposedly there. And as Christians, I think we suffer a lot, because it's a mixed world out there, trying to decipher between, what's good and what's bad, what should be done and what should not be done. I think it's all become confusing. The language has become confusing, and we don't talk to each other anymore.
No, we don't. When I drive to work sometimes, I'll see kids at the bus stop. And I remember being the bus stop. It's, fun. You're getting on the bus. You're there with all the other kids in your neighborhood, But now I can drive past 6 or 7 children, and none of them are interacting with each other. Their heads are all down on their phones.
Yeah, it's so sad. It is so sad to know what things are going to look like, because right now, the reason why you're right, there is no more compassion, because if you think about the mass shootings, we weren't having mass shootings like this 15, 20 years ago. I remember Columbine, and I remember Virginia Tech. And then it skyrocketed as the internet skyrocketed. And I think it did too much. It did so much damage to people. And now I think we're hurting, and we don't even know, because we're so caught in social media now. We're not even paying attention to people.
No, we don't. We don't pay attention to people at all. People have really become a means to an end for a lot of us. I will talk to you if I need something from you. Otherwise, you're not important. And I can give you a good example. You know, I don't have kids, but I am the proud mother of Jake, the 12-year-old poodle. Awfully entitled dog. I gave him some treats today. He was like, yeah, I'm not eating that. I'm like, really? I just spent $8 on that. But anyway, I would need sometimes someone to walk him. And if I told these kids on my street that I will pay you $12 a day to walk my dog, they would be all, oh, Miss Beach, Miss Karen, da. But otherwise, I'm walking my dog. They break their necks not to wave at me or say hello.
Wow.
But if I was a means to them getting money, they'd be chatty. And that too, that's not just the kid's fault, that's the parents' fault.
Yes.
But, you know, we live in this society where people are becoming more and more isolated. And I think as Christians, we need to be the ones to break that isolation.
Right. And like I said, that means going back to where we were before social media happened. That meant having activities. Like I can remember growing up, like the church being one of the safest places to go to hang out, you know, because they had a lot of activities. They always had food. Like that was a community resource for a lot of neighborhoods. And to see that, you know, now people aren't even at church anymore because, and, you know, I'm guilty of this myself, is because a lot of the times it's online now. But when we deal with and when we think about what's happening in mass shootings, when you're afraid to go to the movie theaters, you're afraid to go to Walmart, you're afraid to go into a church, it's like, where's the safe place? So that there's two different sides to it, but both of them are all results of mental health.
True. And we need to do more to get people engaged in mental health. But since this is a Christian podcast, what is it that you want my audience to know about mental health? That,
coming from a Christian standpoint, is that prayer is definitely important. But when you're going through the midst of a storm, prayer is not always what you think about unless you're trying to get out. And there's no telling how long any storm will last. But I will say this, though, that no matter what side of the spectrum that you are, is that if you believe that there is a promise in the next day, and the next day, and that it will come, your faith, your patience will be your testimony. Everything that you go through, everything that you walk through is a testimony to someone else. But if you check out, it dies right there. And it's not talk about like how unfair it may seem to other people as much as it was unfair to your legacy and your story. And right now I pray differently. I pray for faith now because I realize that I don't pray to get out the situation because I realize my situation may bless me into another tomorrow, but I pray for faith to always get through it. And I think that that's important to understand.
I think that's important to understand. And I think it's important for people that aren't suffering from mental illness or trauma, but might be dealing with someone who is, to realize that sometimes your presence is enough. Don't feel like you have to always have the right answer or the pithy right statement to say. Sometimes just being there is enough.
Right.
You know, I know when I've been really down, I've called a friend of mine who loves to talk about herself, and I'm like, just talk. And
right.
Because I don't want to think about my situation. I just want you to talk. or I have a friend that will come and watch TV with me just so that I'm not alone. But those kinds of things are important. I don't need you to tell me that, you know, I need to have more faith or I need to do this. I don't need that. What I need is just you to be here.
Right.
And sometimes that's enough.
Right. And I was going to say, like, that goes back to kind of what we were both mentioning. It's just like, you know, that's what we need to get back to, which is like, you know, let's check up on each other. Like, you know, don't let Facebook be the, you know, end all be all for, you know, to see how someone's doing. Like sometimes like sitting and watching television is just as important.
And I think too, Facebook has changed for the negative, the definition of a friend.
Yes.
Because a friend isn't someone whose posts you like. A friend is someone who, you know, the whole reason I'm here right now is because, you know, I had an event that just set me off. And I was having this massive panic attack right before I took a handful of pills. And my friend called and I said, I was talking to her and she was like, "You're not okay. I'm driving 45 minutes down to see you." And I took a handful of pills and in my best voice, I called her back and I said, "I'm okay. You don't need to come down." But guess who came down anyway?
Right.
And who was there when I woke up in emergency?
Wow. Amen.
You can't get that from a like on a post.
You cannot.
That was somebody who heard the pain in my voice and responded accordingly. And so when we talk about true friendships, when you talk about family members, church members, you're talking about people who have the ability to be present, to, you know, breathe in the same air.
It's, you know, it's just breathtaking to just kind of hear your story because it means a lot. And I think it's important that people hear that because we underestimate the value of friendship. Facebook has defined friendships for us, and it's a false reality. You know, it's just how many times do you really talk to the people on Facebook, you know, that, you know, you might get somebody to message you occasionally or like something, but the value of somebody physically being there to check on you could be a life or death matter, as you can obviously tell, you know. And so I'm happy you're glad. I'm happy you're here today. I'm happy somebody came to check on you, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and it's that kind of true friendship that makes a difference. It's not, oh, I've got 1,500 friends on Facebook. What does that mean?
Right.
You don't even know. If you pass those people on the street, would you really even know half of them?
Right.
You know, but I think it's important that we as Christians reach out to people who are hurting, who are isolated, who may be alone, and to look beyond the surface.
I just think people are scared to talk to each other now. You know, like people could probably be so nice. Like, you know, I think that the media has portrayed a lot of things, you know, to be negative, but I bet people are a lot more positive than we think. It's just, we just don't talk anymore, you know? It's just like, you see people and you're like, they look mean, or, you know, they don't look like they would do this, or, you know, things like that. But we don't talk enough to people to even understand them anymore.
And it doesn't take a lot. Like, people think in the morning, I love where I work now because in the morning, everybody says good morning. And it's so rare to find a place where everyone says good morning. I used to work with a girl. I'm not a morning person. I just said good morning. I'm not trying to have a whole conversation with you.
Right.
Just being cordial and having that kind of first talk. If you can get people to do that, it could be a person that is suffering that just needed that eye contact and that smile. You never know how big of a help your little contribution could have been to someone.
That's true. I can remember as a little girl, I went to a church and my pastor would say, you know, I really wanted to quit a lot of times, but when you guys would come in and smile, it literally gave me so much more hope. And it was just like, it's amazing what interaction will do.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not us sitting down bearing our souls for an hour, but it can be a small interaction that makes a huge difference.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know what, when I think about it, that's what made me become a Christian, you know, because I was totally against the idea of baptism. I was against it completely. And I went to Santa Paula, California on a mission trip, and she was a young Hispanic girl, and she was asking me to braid her hair. And I didn't want to, and she continued to ask me, and I finally did. And she was almost in tears when I got done. And it was that simple act of kindness that literally changed my heart. And when my pastor asked me about being baptized, I was like, if this is what Christianity is about, yeah, you know, I'm for it. And it was just that small thing.
And that is the thing that changes people. When it's not these big overarching gestures, it's the smaller things that really touch people. And the great thing about the small things is that we're all capable of doing those small things.
Right.
You know, it doesn't have to be a big sweeping gesture.
And I think it's easy, you know, in a way, but I think we just have to talk first. You know, the more we talk, the more we'll be out, the more we'll help each other, the more we'll create resources, the more we'll understand the things that are going on in our communities that affect us daily, and the more we'll see a change in our society for the generations to come.
And I really and truly hope that happens. I really do. Where can people find out more about your organization? Where are you on the web?
So I am on Facebook and Instagram. I also have my website. So my website is WeSpeakFoundation.org. I'm also on Facebook under We Speak Foundation as well, and also on Instagram as We Speak Foundation. And just feel free to put us in a Google search engine. You can see the different things that we are doing out in the communities and how we're helping other people each day. And our motto is kindness starts here.
And that's exactly where it starts with all of us. Kindness starts here. And of course, I will have the link to your website in the show description. So if anybody wants to see it, there it is. And we talked about suicide, mental health, and it's really just about getting people the help they need, ushering them to where they need to go to get the support they need. And then what you can do personally is just be there. You don't have to be there with a pithy statement or something, but just being there, letting people know that they matter to you. Because I can tell you firsthand, you know, I thought I'd be dead in a week and it'd be like nobody known it and would even care.
Right.
You know, and so when I had to spend a week in, you know, Kings Mountain Psychiatric, and I realized I was pretty much the only one there that got phone calls every day.
Wow.
From friends that wanted to check up on me. When I got out and I got on antidepressants, like a lot of people on antidepressants, I don't want to think I need antidepressants. And my friends would be the one that would say to me, that would notice before I did, Are you taking your medicine? Are you taking your pills? And that's the testament to real friends, not social media friends, but actual friends that I call and I talk to, that call and check up on me, that, we go out together, we have silly private jokes together. That is the kind of friendship that can make a difference in someone's life.
Right. Amen to that. I agree with that. I have a few, I have a pretty small circle of commendable friends because they check up on me and they make sure I'm okay. And that's important. I think we don't speak every day, but when we do, it's worth it.
Yeah, and that's important too. You don't need an entourage. You don't need to, check in every day. But you need those friends that maybe if you didn't talk to them for a month or two, you can pick up right where you left off.
Right.
My best friend is still in Cleveland, and we go for a couple weeks without talking. But when she calls me, I can hear it in her voice. I'm like, well, those people at work are really working your nerves, aren't they? Girl. And we know each other.
Right.
And it's a good feeling to have that person that on the other end of the phone can read you and understand you.
Right.
There's nothing like that in the world, and we need more of that. But the We Speak Foundation, Kyerra, thank you so much for dropping by my little show, because mental health matters, and it matters for all of us. But definitely for Christians, we need to act out of kindness and concern and really be there to support people that need our help.
Right. Amen.
So
thank you so much.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Until next time, you know what I'm going to say. Be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid or discouraged, because the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Until next time.